Hello, I'm Raleigh Ritchie. I'm Raleigh Ritchie. I am Raleigh Ritchie.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Raleigh Ritchie Radio. This is a podcast where we discuss all things Raleigh Ritchie. The show explores his music discography and provides reaction review and new insight to each song. I'm Cam,
And I'm Alesha.
and it's been a while. It's actually not been that long, but it feels like it
No.
has because February, we released an episode in February, and February is a short month,
Yeah.
but it just feels
Oh,
like it's been
yeah,
so
yeah,
many lives have been lived since
yeah.
then.
And so little updates, basically.
I know. I every episode I think we're like, maybe we'll have an update next time, and we don't,
Literally.
but
3 days later.
but we are still patiently awaiting our R3, some update. Chris Loco did share a very funny video, kind of teasing that like he doesn't know where
Yeah.
was either. And had some fun back and forth. And then he was like, it's not that deep. And yeah, it wasn't an actual update, but it
Yeah.
felt a bit like, ouch. Like
Yeah, it was a mention, but it wasn't one that we want. It was
yeah.
no offense,
We're
Chris,
so
but
desperate that we're like, yay, a
mhm.
mention.
Literally
Um,
the three, like the two letters and the one number, like that's all we got. That's all we got.
yeah, but we will take anything, anything at all. So, I know, yeah, we're all I think really excited for it. I think we're all
We're
you
ready.
know, we're ready. And the thing that I keep like remembering is I know that if it was ready, like it would be out, like
Yeah.
he would not be holding anything hostage. So I know we make jokes and stuff too, but I feel like, take your time. Like,
Wait.
yeah, like
Wait.
we can wait.
Wait.
When it's ready, it'll be here. And I know that the whole team is probably working really hard on it. So I'm excited. But I would like I like an
I like it's it is going to be this year. 100% going to be this year. Well, I'm saying
update. You say that.
it could be the 31st of December, but
Whenever it is, it is. I think I'm at that point now where I've just accepted like I've
it's
he
out when it's out. Yeah.
it's out when it's out. And it is like, I think last year around March was when he tweeted the
Mm.
graphic for the Andy or not it was not Andy 5 years, but or Andy yeah, but it was the live from the O2 artwork, which we would later
Hmm.
see.
Yeah.
And I looked then and I was like, when did he like reply to us about like it's only X so many, there's still so many
Yeah.
weeks left. And that was like April 7th or 8th, I want to say. So I was like,
Whoa.
it's almost been a year since that tweet, which is funny. And
Yeah,
how many
that
weeks
was
are left?
it's only been 52 weeks, but anyway,
Yeah. I want to be like, you
hmm.
owe us an apology.
Hmm.
But yeah, well, I'm really excited for it. I do know, I think, there's been there's so many shipping delays with the
Yeah.
vinyls, which I don't know if people have seen, but they look absolutely stunning. So
I'm
totally
not
worth
seeing
the. You
yeah,
haven't seen
I'm not
actual vinyl?
no.
Oh, I don't want to tell you. And don't look, like close
I
your eyes, but
won't.
it
I
looks
won't.
so beautiful. The splatter is so gorgeous.
Oh wait, that's
And
a physical one. I've seen the picture on the email, but I'm not
yeah.
actually seen the physical.
Yeah, well, and I had one of my friends send me photos of it and the insides and everything, and they're very, very cute. So very exciting, but I think totally worth it then for
Mm.
like whatever was the holdup. I felt bad too because I know like that's the same thing. I feel like anytime we are like about something, like it Rally is also like
Yeah.
about something. So,
Mm.
you know, don't hope he's not stressed out or anything. Like
No.
it's not his fault.
No.
But very exciting. We'll get those soon. So that will hopefully be a little bit of a pickup. And then yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I say I'm at peace with it, but the moment that news drops, which like again, it could be any day. Like he could just literally like not gonna
I
be a
know.
word. It's just gonna be bloop. I turn my phone on, it's like album. But
Low
you know,
key want the live reaction though. That'd be sick.
that
Just
would be
want-
sick. I would probably just be like, Like I would just be like stressed out.
Anytime we've got an update, it's tomorrow. Like,
Yeah. Before we post this and then but so like when it happens it's gonna happen.
mhm.
So that's which is exciting. Yeah, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah, we've got nothing for anyone, so
Yeah, no.
no real updates. It's just
And thanks for tuning in today,
thank
guys.
you. This is
No.
relevant radio. No. Yeah.
But we're not talking about R3 yet because there's nothing to talk about. So, what we're going to be talking about today instead is we've arrived at Andy,
Part two.
which
Yeah.
R2, which is so crazy. This was literally a 4-year gap. So, we had from 2016 to 2020. And instead of like diving straight into the album, feels like it's worth kind of filling in some of the gaps in there. So we're gonna kind of do like a little bit of background on Andy, why it took so long, and then also talk about Time in a Tree because that actually did come out in 2019. So, which in my head it's like that was like right before 2020. There was not that much of a time difference, but still kind of it kind of filled the gap for a little bit. And then so the next time we record, we will actually dive into the rest of the tracks on Andy's. So Andy is the second album from Raleigh Ritchie, and it was released June 26th, 2020. So in the midst of the pandemic. It is, yeah, Raleigh Ritchie's second studio album following You're a Man Now Boy. The name Andy, Alicia, do you know what it is in reference to? I'm doing a little trivia.
The nickname of his it's one of dad,
Close.
granddad.
Granddad, his grandfather. You got it. That was perfect. Yes. Andy was the nickname of his grandfather. I actually think I have the full quote. I did like so much deep dive on this because I was like, I love Andy. Um, So for Viper magazine, he said, that was the name that my granddad was given. It's short for Anderson. I used to go over to his house every Saturday, spend the day with him and my cousins. It's my favorite, cleanest memory of childhood that I have. He's somebody that I always felt safe and secure with. He passed away when I was 10. I miss him. It's weird, and I still think about him regularly. I never called the album Jacob, which is my name. Oh, I nearly called the album Jacob, which is my name, but I feel like people wouldn't necessarily have gotten what I was getting at. A lot of the album sort of addressed myself as a little kid. Andy represents my granddad and safety and a happy place when I was a child. But then in another interview, he said, Andy is a little wink to myself. It's saying, this is you speaking right now. This is you saying what you have to say. So I think it's a little bit of both. I actually had remembered one time too reading that his friends had called him the nickname of Andy, kind of inherited that from his grandfather. So it is, I think, really interesting that like this album is him specifically like especially since he uses Raleigh Ritchie as like his
Yeah.
stage name, like this is him specifically being like, this is who I am, like going from this persona to an actual person, I guess, like behind that, which I think is really reflective of the album as a whole. Like it's very introspective and personal. So I feel like using Andy like is symbolic of that theme of the actual album. And I think that's also maybe like it feels why I love the album so much
Yeah.
because I think I love him as a person. So it's like you're getting, it's a flash at someone's soul, and he's bearing it, which I think is really you could really feel while you're listening to it. And it feels like um yeah, like you can see yourself through him still, which is really, really lovely. But yeah, what do you think about Andy? What's kind of your relationship with it? Do you remember when you first heard it?
Well, the album as a whole.
Yeah,
Well, because it was during obviously like the pandemic, and I
right.
do remember listening to it like when it came out,
Hmm.
and it wasn't one of those albums where I was like, it was relevant at the time because of how like not. I mean, it's not all sad, but it's like it
Yeah,
is sad. That is
yeah.
sad.
It's
So
it's
like,
emotional.
yeah, it's an emotional like. I feel like everyone at that time anyway was just reflecting, and I feel like
Yeah.
although he was well, he would have written it before, like we obviously Time and a Tree. the year
But
before.
still, it's so
Um,
interesting how
literally,
reflective it is to then be released in this period of where a lot of people are,
right,
that's all they're doing.
exactly. Literally, you just sat thinking about yourself, changing things, whatever, and
Hmm.
he's sort of there putting those thoughts into a song, and
Yeah.
he's not even realized that. I mean, maybe he did realize, and that's why he's released it then. I don't know, but like obviously
Mhm.
he didn't know that was gonna
Yeah.
happen. So
Yeah,
it's just like
definitely.
I think it was one of the albums that dropped at the right time, even though it's relevant now.
Yeah.
Like it's just it is
Yeah, I totally agree.
it's
Dropping at
just
the right time.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it's an album that like everyone can resonate with. It is it's
Hmm.
top tier,
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
Yeah. I feel like hearing it during that time period would have been very like
Mm,
comforting because it was like such an isolating period and struggles were so immense, so I feel like to hear that it's like, oh, you're not alone, like you
mm,
feel that. um Something that I also think is interesting is when we were looking up You're a Man Now Boy, I found an article from 2013 when I think Amore maybe first came out,
mm.
and it was by someone saying like we don't know who Riley Ritchie is. Like it was just like we haven't the foggiest where in Britain newcomer Riley Ritchie is operating out of, what his real name is. So we'll just cut to this trace and they just review the song. So I think it's really interesting that
Yeah.
when he debuted, like especially under that name, like he was kind of this enigma. So then we
Mhm.
have that at the early part of his career, and like so like 7 years then later we have Andy and that like exploration, which I just think is really cool. Um
Cool.
yeah, and I feel like during Andy's anniversary last year, I think Chris maybe shared some photos of the making of it. Riley Ritchie obviously has the story too, where he has stuff. So I do feel like this one is a little bit more documented. There's more interviews, strangely, about some of it from before the album came out, just again filling that gap from like 2016 to 2020. It's like a lot of people had questions about it. But one of the things I remember, I think, is talking about how it was like literally kind of going through a therapy session of like
Yeah,
this is where you start off like anxious and then you process this to get to big and scared. And I think that's a really interesting concept that he did through the album while still being like it's very consistent with his themes across music, but yet still feels kind of like the titular version of that, like the best achievement, which makes me even more intrigued for RR3 then.
I know. Like
Yeah.
I feel like that's like you say, it's the first real snippet of him. I think obviously, like You're a Man Now Boy is very much it is still personal. It's like, but you can tell Andy's more. He's put all this work into it. He's like
Yeah.
that's why it took so long, probably. Like
Yeah.
it's just so like he needed it to be exactly the vision that he had with it, and I think that's why it's just such a. I think that's why it's one of like I think everyone's not I don't want to say everyone's favorite, but a lot of people I know do like Andy. Like they prefer Andy over Your Man Now Boy. And I do think it's
Yeah.
like because that's what we want to hear, basically.
Hmm.
Like this, yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect
That's
album.
interesting you say that though, because I remember when tickets for Two Nights Lonely went on sale
Mm,
and Andy took a longer to sell out,
yeah.
which I do think a lot of it's because You're a Man Now Boy did have more of the singles. It did come out
Mhm.
not during a pandemic, so easier to promote. So I do think like the general audience,
You're a Man Now
usually
Boy.
favor
Mhm.
that, which probably like helps sell more tickets. But I do feel like, yeah, those fans that are like really in it are like not, I think you get more of those like casual enjoyers for
Yeah.
Your Man Now Boy maybe, while Andy is like, okay, like we're in
Mm.
it. And I
Yeah,
that's
so
why I actually was gonna be like, I feel like it's somewhat underrated, not necessarily by RR fans, but by like
the general, yeah.
society. Yeah, the general
Well, I
public.
suppose
Yeah.
like with You're a Man Now Boy, you've got like the greatest blood
Yeah.
sport. Well, even just like them two. You don't even have to mention any other songs. But
Stronger
like
than
they're
ever.
stronger than ever. Like literally, all of these songs, they were singles before everyone knows them. If you're a listener of Raleigh Ritchie, but you're not a fan of Raleigh Ritchie, you're gonna name one of
Hmm.
them songs. But like obviously you've got Time in a Tree, but I still wouldn't think you'd name that song if Like I feel like
Right.
more people are likely to know the greatest, more likely to know
Right.
Bloodsport than they are any of
Yeah.
the other songs on Andy.
Yeah, and I think part of that too is like because thematically Andy is a little bit more to cipher
Mm.
with. I also think it's not like I think You're a Man Now Boy sometimes has a little bit more like generic choices production
Mhm.
wise, where I think Andy doesn't. I mean, like think of like structure, like that's just completely stripped
Yeah.
back.
Mhm.
Um, so I feel like You're a Man Now Boy, like it does have kind of this like youthful, like coming of age, like romantic tone that can be a little bit more like summery pop, while Andy, although still has,
Mm.
songs that we love and you can dance to is a lot more like personal, stripped,
Yeah.
like self-critical, introspective. And I think too, if we think of like, I know You're a Man Now Boy, some of those songs ended up on like advertisements and in TV shows. I was on a page the other day and it was like appeared on Love Island, like all of his songs from You're a Man Now Boy was on Love Island UK. I was like, all right. But even that gives it,
Mm.
access to people where Andy doesn't really fit with that. Plus is
Wow.
just a shift in society and music culture as a large compared to You're a Man Now Boy. So I think, it's just kind of at that point where there were so many things leading into it, both the sound itself, but then just like the world as a
Yeah.
whole. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um,
Mm.
but it's really phenomenal. I think some of the reasons why it was delayed, I think some people know this, but he actually had been working on a version of the album that was all collabs, and it was originally going to be called Swans, and which stood for, let me check my notes here. Okay, it was originally going to be called Swans, which was Smiley Warriors Are Never Sad. But I think this was on the Hip Hop Save My Life podcast. He said Blood Orange had a similar title that referenced
Ah.
swans. So, yeah, that's why he decided not to name it that. But yeah, it was a fully collab album before changing the concept. And I think that's also why, like, I would be really curious how far along he had gotten, and maybe, someone might know this, but before he changed it, and actually then how long it took to make. Because I think in our head, we think, well, Andy took 4 years. I don't think that's probably true. I
No.
think it's more like Andy maybe took 2 years
Yeah.
because he had really developed this and then completely scrapped it. He also said that there was a version of this album earlier on where we used quite a lot of drums, but we repurposed them to sound something more soulful. We were calling it Deep Home. Interesting.
Oh,
Interesting. But he does say like deep house, but not for clubbing. What does that mean? What's
wait,
deep
deep
home?
house
Deep
is in
house.
house is in music, the music.
Oh, like house music. Well,
Yeah,
whatever.
I'm assuming. I don't know. I
I was like,
don't
what does that mean? Okay. But he does say it's deep house that feels like home. I'm really crappy at talking about my influences because I feel like I'm influenced by everything. But obviously, David Bowie in terms of pop. Bowie was huge. He was everything to me when I was growing up. He was my hero, maybe a bit of Prince as well. Bowie and Prince, I feel like they didn't just stick to one thing. They always made boundary-less music. I'm not interested in making something that sounds good now. I want to make things that will hopefully still work in 20 years. People will still find comfort in it. Wow, period, King. And guess what you
know.
are? You
Exactly.
did. Um, but that's
I have a
interesting.
question. I have a
Yeah.
question. So, do we? I
Obsessed
have a
with you.
question.
Like, welcome to class.
Please. Do you know if these collabs got recorded? Like, did they
You know
get?
what? I don't think so. I don't
I
know.
want.
I don't
I
even
want to
think
know if
we
they
know the
would.
names of who collabed, who he had in mind for collabs.
Because I want to know, like,
Let's ask him. Call him up. Come on, Riley Ritchie Radio. We got questions.
well, we've got questions. I need to type this down. But it's like, did they actually record? Like, is it these songs or is it not these songs?
I
'Cause
don't think it's these songs, and that's
oh,
actually a
that's
good
me.
question. Trust I have notes. Trust I've done a little bit of research. No,
Okay.
that's a good question. I did see something. I have so many notes, guys. Like it's actually insane. Like I was like for this album. But because there's like a lot, like
Hmm.
this is kind of going back a little bit. I think it's important to remember that he was no longer with his music
Yeah.
publisher at the time. I was actually just listening to the Two Shot podcast, and that he was like he after the album came out, You're a Man Now Boy came out like 9 months later, they dropped him. So I think that's important to remember. He was like someone else like took over and just like wasn't interested. But he was like, I'm glad, like I was glad I got out of it. But I think that's important to remember too in terms of like production, like how quickly he
Mm.
like how he was able to have so much time off, like how it sounds different. And also part of why I think we like it so much is because you don't have that like same level of interference. Um Anyways, that wasn't really related. I don't know where my point was going with that, but I just oh, I think too like part of the promotion for it is different like because of that. Like yeah, he didn't. Okay, so are there any songs? Okay, I found it. Thank you. Thank you for coming to me. So someone actually asked him, your last album was in 2016. Why such a long break? He said, these things take a long time. Like I wrote a note about it. People can read it on Instagram, which you can. He did have a lovely note. There's a process to it, and I had to figure out exactly what I wanted and needed to say, and I didn't want to rush it. I don't think you should ever rush these things. I wrote the album because I wanted to understand something about myself. I wasn't going to stop halfway through. I had to get to the end of my point. That's why it took so long. The irony of me being annoyed that Jay Electronica or Frank hasn't released anything for years while I was keeping other people waiting on my album will never be lost on me. So I get it. This motherfucker. Anyways.
And now we've waited longer, so
And now we're
yeah, yeah.
if Frank Ocean releases another album before Raleigh Ritchie. But and then he says, are there any songs that you wrote a while ago that ended up on the album? Squares and Worries are the oldest songs on the album. Squares I wrote about 4 years ago, which would have been like 2016 then, because this interview
Wow.
was in 2020. And Worries about 3 years ago. That's the only song that was on the first version of the album, which
So
sounded quite different. Everything
oh.
else was recorded in that period. Like I said, we worked in blocks. For instance, we wrote and recorded Aristocats, Big and Scared, and Structure in the same weekend. I think you can tell when some songs were recorded around the same time because they share a narrative. That's
Hmm.
interesting. I
Hmm.
should kind of listen and
But
yeah, the narrative. But I do think, that he does a
so
good job of making it.
who would you put on Worries? That's crazy. Like I can't imagine any of these songs with I mean, I know they weren't
Yeah.
written for collabs, all of them, but wow.
Yeah, and I feel like I remember reading too about Worries be sounding different,
Hmm.
way different. But I don't remember exactly, so I don't want to quote, I don't want to tell you, but if someone when we get to Worries, I'll try to see what I
Yeah.
can research
I'm
up. And then
good.
I also remember in one of I'm gonna go to his Instagram and Chris's post for this about
Mm-hmm.
the album, wasn't there like a song on
Yeah,
there?
it was you. No. No.
Skylight and
Oh.
Blood Ties and Gotcha.
Oh
And
yeah, on the actual thing.
this
Yeah,
is
on
on
the
the whiteboard. There's so many different.
yeah.
I'm gonna zoom in on this. So we have
Gotcha.
warriors instead of worries, squares, herons, like Herons. Like that's like a bird, right? I'm thinking of the boy
Hmm.
and the heron.
It's a big
Maybe it
bird.
says heron and I just can't read. But then in parentheses, ooh ah, and then gotcha with like six A's. And then blood TES is what it looks like, but blood teas. And then skylight, and then STFU, and then better lately, and then 27 Club, and then it just says spring spring break maybe.
Spring break.
I don't know, but
That
really
sounds
interesting. And I think a lot of these are, I think we've like went through this and been like, well, I think he just like renamed some of the songs.
yeah.
Like it's still the same songs, but just were renamed. Oh, and then here we do have the therapy kind of breakdown. So, um my God, we got to work on our handwriting, my guy. I literally don't know what it says, but he has aristocrats, sad boy, shut the fuck up, and worries all together. And then it
Hmm.
goes to party, fear, and shadow, which he labels as self-harm. And then he has a circle with a question mark in it that says crisis point. And then he goes to reflection, which is shadow, structure, time in a tree, concentrate, which maybe was something that he changed the name of, and then squares. And he actually has down piano happiness in parentheses breathe, which is kind of
Mm.
like he says breathe on it a lot. And then he
Mhm.
has therapy, big and scared, and something else right under there that I cannot quite see. But I think that's really interesting.
That is very interesting.
Yeah. I would be really curious, the collabs. Yeah. Maybe
I
he
can't
might not have
imagine.
gone to that point either. And yeah, I
Yeah,
really feel like Worries, he had it so different, but
I need to hear that.
we ain't got time for figuring that out right now.
No.
And Worries and Pressure are like my two favorite songs from it. So I would be release the Worries tapes, the files,
I feel like
release
oh,
the Worry files. Um, he does say on Writing Andy, I write songs for myself to get things off my chest and process my emotions, but then I release them and I don't own them anymore. They belong to other people. I hope there's someone who listens to it and hears themselves in the album. I hope that makes them feel less lonely. Period. He did
that,
it. Did
that.
it. Yeah. So then we had Time in a Tree, and I said 2019 earlier, but it was actually 2018. That was released August 2nd, 2018 as a
Oh.
single.
Mhm.
The track was produced by Grades, and it was his first new music, like following, like after a really long time. I think he had probably Lonely Summer
Yeah.
after kind of Mind the Gap, but it was really like his comeback. And I also do want to say, like during this time period, he's obviously filming Game of Thrones as well. So like
He's a
there's
big
he's a
guy.
busy boy, not only just working on the
Yeah.
album. I think he's actually talked about too, like he would write songs kind of like during breaks filming, but just collaboration and stuff that gets hard to space out
Hmm.
then. Um, but yeah, so Time in the Trees was produced by Grades, who's also known as Daniel Trainer. I love do you know like American Teen by like Khalid? It's an album that I really like, and he Grades worked on it and was Grammy nominated for it. So very cool. But he's also worked with her, Dua Lipa, Bastille, Tinashe, and then also working on this track is obviously Rosie Danvers on the strings, who's kind of the goat on some of the
The
Riley Ritchie
go.
albums. There is a really good breakdown of the song that he did for Song Exploder, so recommend listening to that podcast. And then he did break down the lyrics for Genius. So I am gonna kind of pull some things that he said about it, but he obviously goes in more in depth on those podcasts and in those videos. So recommend going and listening to those. It's really interesting on Song Exploder listening to that interview because it has him on it. I think Grades comes on, Rosie might. But he has voice memos from when he first started coming up with the song, and they enter it on the podcast so you can kind of hear him like humming or like the foundations of the song being laid, which I think is really awesome. But the one thing with Time in a Tree that I feel like I remember reading, and I could not find anything about this either though, is I was thinking he thought this was kind of like a phrase people said, like when you're like, oh, like get your head out of the clouds or like
Yeah.
down to earth. Like I was thinking he thought like, okay, I'm gonna go spend some time in a tree was like a phrase people said, but it's not. And then he realized and was like, I guess I just thought that was something, and it's not. So I feel like I remember reading that, but then in these interviews he like has a great story for it where he's like, it's like saying like, it reminds you of like when you're a kid, like
Yeah.
going back and feel like what it felt like to be a child. So he says, I used to love climbing trees. I like the idea of a tree being this kind of elevated space. I think sometimes that grounding can I think sometimes that grounding and being grounded can be a really negative thing if you have an anxious brain because you're connected to everything. Connected to your friends, your family, connected to your job, to your responsibility, to the people around you, to society. It can bottle you in, I guess. The whole verse is about being a child and feeling like you could do anything. There was never any doubt, and now I'm kind of like riddled with doubt. And so it's just about reaching back and trying to find the things that I still care about and still want to do from when I was a child. And I'm like, I think you kind of like I think he kind of made that answer fit to this. But
Yeah.
I do think that was like the theme and the vibe. But I think
Yeah.
he thought like time of
Yeah.
retreat
He
was
did
a
think
thing
that.
and then was like, it is now though. Like
No,
it
it
is a
is.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Ugh.
So I love that. Yeah, so how about should we watch the music video and listen to it and then talk about it? I do want to flag. I did not know this. Someone asked him in an interview, what's the significance of the time signature at a minute 49? And he says, it's something we did in Stronger Than Ever video, which we have talked about. That's the moment in the music video when, he's like being blown away and then it cuts
Yeah.
back to him on the bench and his face is like in his hands. Um, so apparently I'm curious when we watch it this time if Time in a Tree also has something at a minute 49, because I don't feel like I've noticed this.
No, me neither.
Yeah,
Well,
and then he says like, it's like, let's do that in every video. It's like a nice point. And weirdly, in a lot of the songs that I've done, it's kind of like a magic thing happens where exactly at that point in the video, something already kind of naturally is falling at that point. So I'm like, shit, we gotta watch all of his music videos for a minute
so
49.
calculated. Like everything he. And why have we
Oh,
not
he's
caught
so
on?
like he like
Right. Okay.
all
Oh,
right, you ready?
wait.
No.
Yes.
You count us down, maybe.
Okay.
Shit.
3, 2, 1, go.
I forgot that there's like the funny little
Yeah.
elevator music that I feel like I see this elevator music in like K-pop edits. That's like funny moments. Like that's the background music they use. That's probably where he heard it too, of course.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard that. He looks so young.
He looks so young but so cute. His ball head. I love the use of elevator in this and introduction of people. Like him as a child and then as
Yeah.
he grows.
So cute.
I'm on the edge of crying all the time because I can't human.
And the melody for this song is so like if you ever just listen to instrumental for it, it's really like it's very enjoyable. It's
Yeah.
kind of tropical almost, which we see the beach.
Oh wait, what's the time we've got to wait for?
1:49, so we're coming up on it. I'm like stressed a little bit. I love the maybe Vienna wouldn't wait for me line, a reference to the song Vienna. All right, here we go. I think it's probably when the breakdown happens.
Yeah, low key. Wait, I feel like I remember it, but
Maybe not. Is it when he leaves, maybe?
no, I think don't he like make him not leave?
Well, we're about to find out.
We're about to find out. Oh, I know.
Okay. Nothing really happened. I guess the breakdown of the song.
I guess.
A guy covered the frame. Oh, because we get two of them. That's why. That was it.
I never noticed that though.
I didn't. Why? How did I not notice this either? But there's two of them. Yeah, it's the Stay Inside Raleigh Ritchie
Yeah, with the
marks from and like kind of the studio for Your Man Now Boy.
Why have I never noticed that there's two of them?
I don't know why I hadn't either. I think I thought he'd left frame and then the other one came in. So maybe we're idiots.
I heard that. I swear that guy tries to leave and he's like, no.
What a beautiful song though. I love all the breakdowns in this. The release, like it feels like that in the song at that moment.
Yeah.
Does he hug him, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
No, it does.
Greedy, love me, feed me, let's be a family. It'll take a village to make a man of me.
I'm gonna cry.
So why couldn't you love me?
Especially like thinking about him saying this album is him talking to his younger self.
Yeah.
I think we think Big and Scared, like especially little him, with this like being able to talk to your teenage self, like
Yeah. Aww.
and then like the childhood version of himself coming in and like saving him. And the astronaut motive, here we go. The birth of it, really.
That's like his younger self saying he can still be an astronaut.
Yeah. You always wanted to be one, and
And there you go.
you can still. And I love thinking of that, especially now with that quote of him being like, I feel like I am one because I like explore the feeling of floating like through my songs. and space face, which is kind of like the
Hmm.
he's used that terminology. He has some sweatshirts and stuff. I actually was looking up and I think it was one of the labels that he's released some of his songs under too. So I thought that was interesting that like his version of like
Yeah, yeah.
what he's published under, which I had not realized that. But um yeah, I think Time in a Tree is kind of it's so interesting too that this was released in 2018, so
Yeah.
before Andy, and yet still such a good it encapsulates the entire album of Andy in so many ways because you do have like the reflection like coming to this therapy this conclusion. You have the breakdown moment with the drums that feels much more overwhelming and anxious, which is I think like kind of the start of the album.
Mhm.
So it's like I even think when like the quote that we were reading earlier of him being like I had to figure out what I wanted to say. Like this could be really kind of that launching pad for it. Like making a song like this and then being like, there's actually more to unpack here. And he does it on the rest of the album.
Yeah, I feel like if there were one song just to describe the whole album, this is
Yeah.
definitely like the whole, it's
Yeah.
like I say, it's showing start to finish what the whole
Hmm.
album's like. And I know it's like, it's in the middle, well, not the middle, but close to the top, but in the
Yeah.
middle. So
Yeah.
it's not like it's the opening to the album. It's just like
Right.
a good reflection of just him. I do
Hmm.
think this is like one of my favorite songs, but it's also like I do think it's underrated. Even though like I know a lot
Yeah.
of people talk about it, it's not like
Yeah.
a song that it's not like the greatest. Like we're one of
Right.
these songs that's like it's not blown
Hmm.
up, but it's really good.
Right. And I think part of that too is because of like the time it was released as a single and like I think the sounds much more like a song you would hear in 2020 than I think a
Yeah.
song you would hear in 2018, especially with like the voice distortion, which I know he uses that in other songs, especially
Yeah.
around this era. Oh, hit my hat. But yeah, I think like thematically again, it feels like I could see why, if you're a fan of Stronger Than Ever or Bloodsport to hear this and be like, "Oh, this is kind of a different sound." And
Yeah.
then it's one piece of this puzzle that we'll later get to, but I think on its own, it's kind of this like little oddball, especially at that time in his career. So I think that's fascinating, but it is very like it reminds me of like rocking back and forth. Like
Yeah.
I think like it's a very you can go with the melody in like this
Comfort.
very flowful way,
Yeah.
which I also think reminds me of like my childhood, of like being
Mm-hmm.
rocked, like being
Being
soothed.
comforted, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
Oh.
a very soothing type beat, especially when we get to the chorus. And I know like they said that the song um it did not take them very long to make. He said, let me see. Um we started that song and wrote the lyrics for that song in one day and then kind of put it down because I was like, I don't really get it. Like, I don't really fully know where this song exists now. And then we listened to it the next day and both of us kind of looked at each other and were like, oh, this is something on its own. This can exist.
Mm.
I was tinkering around on the keys for a little bit, trying to find some cool sounds. I started playing with this kind of riff. Um, yeah, so they just kind of like it just kind of happened. And then I do think it's really interesting that Graves says like Jacob just kind of like came up with this like the like progression, the main part of it, that beef, that
Mm.
tenor tree, and it just kind of happened very naturally, it feels
Yeah.
like, which I think also, when you're with someone and making music that you feel safe with, that kind of happens. But it's really interesting that yeah, it just sort of happened very easily. And then I think this is interesting. He says, listening to the piano line along with that makes me think about Casablanca as time goes by, that kind of thing. I think that's probably what gave me the very traditional movie romance sort of feeling. I always associate strings with very cinematic moments. My connection to films and that type of storytelling, I think, is why some kind of orchestration feels like a really important part of my music. And shouts out Rosie Danvers, which I also think is interesting because we've talked about before, like how some of his songs feel very epic and
Yeah.
cinematic, and he's like intentionally saying, like, I think my interest in films has influenced that and film scores. So, um, and then he also makes fun that the kind of distortion to their voice that they do there, was they wanted it to sound like a sample from another song, so people would be Googling it, trying to find it,
Yeah.
and then they would be like, it's
Just
not like they're just playing a trick on you, which I think is
it
very
does sound
funny.
like an old song.
It does. Yeah, it worked. Yeah. So, yeah. I also know one of the things that people really like about this song, and actually I think Andy as a whole is interesting if we remember like I think Riley Ritchie himself is like never like masculinity, right? Like he's like
Hmm.
a male singer, and I think
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
very vulnerable and open with his mental health, which is rare for men, and like does not seem to shy away from that. And specifically in this song and other songs, he has, the line that's like, I have butch days, I have femme days. Like he's very open to gender exploration and not like allowing that to be something where anyone listening can feel a relationship to his music too. And he said in the Genius interview about the line, because he says like you can be a real girl. He said to be honest with you, that could be you could be a real girl thing. I've been thinking a lot about pronouns and songs, and even though I write really personal songs, I don't ever want anybody to feel like it's not theirs. And so the reason I said you could be a real girl, for one, it rhymes, but for two, I was like, why not? It's not just about me. And I think the whole point of this verse as well, you could really do anything. You just have to give to get yourself there. There's a lot of time where I feel like I can be the healthiest, best version of myself, and I believe it. Like truly, I truly, truly believe it. But you have to work for that. That can't just that doesn't just come. You don't necessarily just wake up in the morning and you're like, hey, I'm the best version of me. For everyone, they have to work, like whatever you do yoga or you say affirmations or whatever it is, whatever gets you there, you still have to work for it, even if you enjoy it. But yeah, I was just thinking I'm going to use a different pronoun because why not? It means the same thing, which I think is like, I love that he's even like being like
Thought
that
that.
and
Yeah.
being okay with that. And I think it's just like he, as a musician and a person, feels so like generous and open, even sharing the songs and his emotional journey with us. And not only to share that, which is this incredibly personal thing, but to share it in a way that he's keeping in mind how others are going to respond to it and wanting
Hmm.
them to feel that connection too. And to be okay with saying, like, you can take this, even though it's my story, and make it yours too. That is such like a rarity to find in a human being at all, in a person. So, I mean, how beautiful to have that and then to take it and turn it into this art and be so open with it. I mean, he's just so special. He's so special. Um, and then my favorite part of the Genius interview, he does say, like it takes a village to raise a child. And they ask him, I think, like who his village is. He says, my wife, my dog, and my friends. But then he says, and so are the people that listen to my music and feel understood. That's my village as well, where we understand each other. We're together in this, which I think is really lovely that
True.
he
I
includes
feel
us.
like we all understand each other just because we are
Yeah.
fans of Raleigh Ritchie, and I think it's just nice. It's just cute.
Yeah.
I
He
love the
brings
little
so many like connections, like,
mutually.
yeah, which is really
Just
his
love
mind, his
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 man,
impact.
good guy.
This guy. We all need RR3 because we're all like going through it mentally. So we need him to
Yeah.
heal us. Like the world is a terrible place and we need
We
Riley
need
Ritchie.
Raleigh.
Save
Yeah.
us, please.
Please, please
Yeah.
save
Oh.
the priority.
But yeah, I think I also like during this time, he was touring a lot too. So bring that back. I think that he hasn't I mean he did I guess the two nights lonely, but he's not toured since then. So
Like we need more. We need more like live
yeah.
performances. It don't even have to be tour. It's
Yeah.
like, well, it does, but like it doesn't have to be tour. I just want to hear in the studio
Yeah.
live performances, that sort of
Hmm.
vibe. You don't have to be on stage.
Yeah.
Just a stripped back version of something.
Yeah.
That's
I
what we
love
need.
the Squares live performance that he did for the James Corden
Yeah.
show. And yeah,
That's my
like
favorite.
it's so incredible. I think it's a really interesting like production for them to still
Mhm.
like do that during the pandemic. Like again, it's like he can't ever half-ass something, which is why R3 is probably taken so long because it's like
Okay.
it is everything he does is like incredible. He
So
didn't need to
good.
be doing all that for this
No,
live performance on COVID and he did. And it's
it's
and
just
and I think also those musicians like got to make money during the pandemic. Like he
yeah,
employed them to do this, which is
exactly.
incredible too. Like it's yeah, it's
I like
amazing.
that like they're a little family as well. I just feel like they get each
Yeah,
other,
that's a good
we
point.
get them, they get us. It's just a nice as a whole dynamic.
Yeah.
It's just so
Yeah,
nice.
I think that's true too. And I think especially you know, you and me, we love Chris Loco. We say it
Love
all the
that guy.
time. That's our man. Sometimes more than Raleigh Ritchie, it feels like. But
Yeah,
I think,
okay.
you know, we also like Rosie Danvers, we've appreciated her work too. Like all of the people that he works and collaborates with and the people behind the scenes on his team, like are so it just seems so genuine and like
Mhm.
great, good people, especially even, you know, reading some of these interviews. Um, that I think, yeah, like when we appreciate Raleigh Ritchie, it's not just him that we
Yeah,
appreciate, but it's
the
everyone
whole
who's
picture.
makes this happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think you make something that can connect this way without that support from everyone involved, you know, which is
Mhm.
just just feels like good vibes, you know?
Such good vibes. Like I just know that it's just like it just works perfect. I know like we hear the end result, but I just know everything from start to finish is just perfect. They just work together just so well.
Yeah.
It's just so
They
good.
deserve everything good in the world
They
forever.
do. They do.
Yeah, but so I mean that's Andy and we're gonna
That's it.
start from the top, work our way through it on future episodes.
Go through it.
I can't believe that we're at Andy already. Like
Wow.
truly, but
Do some new
wow.
music soon, I think.
I hope so. I really hope so. Ay, ay, ay. But
Right.
yeah, really special album and
Mm.
I think yeah, the to think that we will have this will be the longest break, 6 years between albums. So whew, I can't even imagine what do you I mean, I know you had listened to You're a Man Now Boy, but when Andy and we're kind of more casual, but when Andy
Yeah.
released, were you like waiting for it or were you just kind of like, oh, here it is, you know?
Yeah, I felt because I always listen to him anyway, like he was
Yeah.
always in my top Spotify artist, whatever. But I don't think I was this like
Yeah, obsessive.
wait, yeah,
Yeah,
like,
like waiting
yeah,
for it.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, but I get it.
No,
Yeah.
like I've
That's
always
how I
been
feel about Harry Styles. Like I love
yeah,
Harry, but I'm not like, you know, when it's ready, when it's gonna come, then I'm like, oh great,
yeah,
it's here. I'm not like doing a countdown, but
exactly. Whereas now I'm like,
I'm doing
bro,
a
I need
countdown.
it.
Yeah.
I need this. But
Yeah.
like obviously like You're My Now Boy, Andy, everything in between, I'm like listening to still. I'm not like
Yeah.
not listening to him just because I'm
Right.
like bored of a song. Like, I will
Right,
listen
right.
to the albums whenever. Like, but
Mm-hmm.
I just love to hear new songs. Like, it's
Yeah.
just like when Dead Ends and Diversions came out, it was just
Mm-hmm.
so nice to hear something like I've not heard before. I
Yeah.
feel like that's where it is like with someone that you're a fan of. Like, it's just
Yeah.
how it's gonna be. Like,
Yeah. You could listen to them on
yeah,
repeat. Yeah, definitely. I agree. Yeah.
yeah,
I think it's just again too like that excitement of because we know what he delivers.
mm,
So it's really exciting of like seeing what he has in store for us
yeah.
in
And
all
it's nice that
aspects.
yeah, and it's nice that there's like a community of us who are getting
Mhm.
excited about it as well. So I feel like that just makes you want to hear new stuff even more, so you can like
Yeah.
experience it together.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
It's
Yeah.
nice.
Well, I think that's everything. There's still so much more, I mean, to be said
Yeah.
about this. And again, like I really recommend listening to the podcast. I'll have them down in the bio too, because there's some really more in-depth things he says about it. But why should I, you know, go listen to him say it? You don't need to hear me recap it. Go look at him. He says it way better. So yeah, and check out our social medias, links below to stay tuned on Raleigh Ritchie.
Yes.
What else do we usually say here at the end?
Bye.
Bye. Well, thank you guys for listening, and we will be back when we're back. Usually we try to be back once a month, so
Yeah, we
we'll
try, we
try to be
try.
back maybe a little bit sooner.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
Okay, bye.
Bye.